Call to order the regular town commission meeting for February 25th, 2025. Please stand for the pledge of allegiance to the flag. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Town clerk, roll call, please.
Mayor Kurzman,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Burrell,
Here.
Commissioner Fender,
Here.
Commissioner Mayfield,
Here.
Commissioner Titicus.
Here.
All right, and proclamations and presentations, we have Martin County Healthy Steward Coalition. Ms. Suffich?
Hi.
Yes.
Hi.
Hi.
How are you this evening?
Excellent.
Thank you for having me. My name is Samantha Suffich. I am the CEO of Martin County Healthy Start Coalition, and there is a PowerPoint that I was going to share with you to
Yes. just
guide
give me 1
the
minute.
conversation.
I got the wrong one up, so bear with me. Don't try this at home. And let me pull it back up, sorry. Oh, there, no, that's your memo.
Medication.
Close this one. Did you?
Well, thank you. I did have,
Can you do it from yours? Okay, that's fine.
I had one initial meeting with Commissioner Mayfield, and she suggested instead of having individual meetings with all of you, it would be more efficient to inform you guys collectively, as well as the general public as they can attend today too in live streaming. So I can tell you, so Healthy Start in Martin County has been around for 30 years. We are a part of legislation. The late Governor Lawton Chiles in early 1990s saw that there was a severe issue in Florida to address, that we needed to address, which was infant mortality. And so he formed the Healthy Start Coalitions. There's one to represent every single county. So it's our responsibility to look at the needs of the community when it comes to maternal child health, as well as address those needs. So our mission is every baby is born healthy, every mother is supported, and every father is involved. And so I wanted to talk to you this evening about a community-based maternity center because there's a big change happening with labor and delivery closing at North Hospital, and I want to let you know what the impact of that is going to be on the community. You can go to the next one. So the labor and delivery is closing April 1st of this year. That means that Cleveland Clinic is sending everyone to Tradition Hospital if they're going to be having their babies. They will continue to provide prenatal and postnatal postpartum visits at their family center off of Indian Street in Canner, the new large building there at the base of the bridge. But overall, that means that we're going to have probably 500 to 600 families who were delivering here, traveling out of county to have their babies. The other care options right now in the community, families can go to Jupiter Medical, they can go to St. Lucie Medical. For those that are more high risk, they can go to St. Mary's down in West Palm or Lawnwood Regional Medical. And this is a growing trend when it comes to maternity care deserts. There are reports done by the March of Dimes, and a maternity care desert is basically when there is not enough OB care, midwifery care, or delivering hospitals for a community. For example, Okeechobee, which has around 500 births a year, they are considered a maternity care desert. If we lose this hospital, we are moving in the direction of becoming a maternity care desert. So the model that I would like for our community to initiate is a community-based maternity center. Go to the next. So, and that's because there is a growing trend in births. So there is There's a lot of conversation that Martin County is an older population, but there is an increase in births that are happening in our community. On average, over the years, you're looking at between 1,200, 1,300. In 2022, we got to 1,298. And then in last year, we got up to 1,358. So that's a 100 increase over the year prior. So we are increasing, and there's no reason why we should not have a delivering hospital in our community. So the model that I'm suggesting is technically it's a birth center, and this would be in collaboration, as conversations go with Cleveland Clinic, to have a freestanding birth center adjacent to South Hospital, so we would be able to transport if necessary to the hospital right next door. It'd be about a 6-minute drive for that very rare instance where someone would need a transport. So there is a study it looked at 42,000 Medicaid recipients across the nation who were delivering in birth centers, and they saw a 26% lower chance of preterm birth, 20% chance of low birth weight, 40% lower chance of a cesarean section, which is a more expensive surgical way of having your baby, and a 94% higher chance of a successful vaginal birth after cesarean. Overall, there was a 21% lower childbirth cost in this type of model. And so a big part of what Cleveland Clinic is saying that is driving them to close is the economic piece of the conversation, as well as the staffing challenges. They cannot find OBs to work, to have appropriate patient to provider ratio. But they also see such a high number of Medicaid recipients at our hospital that they're not able to make ends meet. So there's an operating deficit for labor and delivery at North Hospital. The model that I'm proposing is considered a value-based payments structure. So the better the outcome, the better the quality of the service, the overall lower cost, which means that you're going to be it's not going to cost as much to operate. So $7,500 per patient for just a normal delivery in the birth center, compared to almost $15,000 for a vaginal hospital birth, or a $26,000 per cesarean birth. So just overall, there's the argument here that this is a great model going forward for economic reasons. So our vision is, if you can go to the next slide, this would be a family-centered maternity center. It would be offering prenatal, delivery, labor and delivery, postpartum care, but additionally lactation support, mental health services, and parenting education. So the healthcare providers would be working in tandem with the more social-based services offered through Healthy Start already. So we have home visitation, we have nutrition education, and all sorts of things like that. We are anticipating that if we can get it fully staffed and whatnot, capacity would be 500 to 600 or 700 births a year. When we're looking at those that would be eligible based on their risk. So if someone's a high-risk delivery, they're going to need to be overseen by a obstetrician in a hospital. But someone who is considered low risk, over the past few years, it's about 80% of our births in the community. And like I said, it would be staffed by physician, nurse, midwives. So those are graduate level or nurse practitioner level trained midwives, nurses, and then overseen by a physician. So we are talking to the county about occupying a space that is adjacent to South Hospital. Right now it is it's about 5.5 acres, almost 6 acres, and it is being used for, I've heard, animal control. It was the former EOC for emergency response, but there is 2.5 acres that they're not utilizing that we could use for this purpose. And so if we can get the county to agree upon that, which we're in conversations with right now, we would be able to build, it would be a 15,000 square foot facility, but the core clinical piece would be 3,000. 4 exam rooms, 6 birth suites, a triage room, recovery rooms, as well as accommodations for family while their babies are being born. The additional square footage would be for Healthy Start-based services, so our social workers, mental health, lactation. We also give out 18,000 diapers a month, so there's additional services that would be provided there. Go back one more.
Oh, sorry.
And so, right now I have a state appropriation in supported by Representative Overdorf and Senator Harrell. So that would be, if we get the entire thing, $2 million. So that gets us a little bit closer to the 5.5, but it helps us get started. And then I have a number of local funders and donors who are interested as well. So this is a long haul, but we'll get there. And then next. And then funding, so we're looking at $2 million for annual operating. When we're looking at the payer mix is what they call it in the hospital, 50% would be private insurance. So we're going to try to avoid the situation that Cleveland Clinic found themselves in, where most Medicaid people were being sent there. But this would be for everyone in the community. Potentially 26% Medicaid, 18% would receive PEPW, which is the presumptive eligibility pregnancy waiver. It's a temporary Medicaid eligibility. And then when that expires, it goes into charitable care. And then 6% could be self-pay. And that information, or that estimation for me, is determined based on the local services that we currently provide. All right. And then, so Healthy Start, we are a coalition. I'm not in the business of operating a healthcare center or anything like that. I deal more with social services. So we have recruited individuals from the community who will lend their expertise. And so if you go to the next slide. We have 3 different committees. One is clinical operations. One is for helping us get this building up and going. And then the final is a fundraising committee. So helping us secure grants, donations, and then community sponsorships. And that's what I have for you today. If anyone in the public is interested, there's a QR code. If you are interested in contributing to this very long campaign, that's down in the lower corner. So do you have any questions for me?
Good.
I don't have any questions, but I really appreciate you taking your time. I know you're busy, but spreading the message, and I thought that by giving this presentation, then we can also help spread the word, because I do think it's really important. It's a needed service, so thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Titicus.
Yeah, I agree with Commissioner Mayfield that obstetrics is a needed service in our community. But a couple questions. One is, if Cleveland Clinic or Martin Health is enjoying an adverse payer mix, what makes you think that only 26% of your patient load is going to be Medicaid?
So the current situation that they're under is the result of Florida Community Health Center. I'm not pointing blame, I'm explaining the issue. Florida Community Health Center is our federally qualified health clinic. Mm-hmm. They provide primarily Medicaid-based services or those who are uninsured. Over the past few years, they have shifted to sending all their patients to North Hospital, whereas a number of other community individuals who have more resources have traveled outside of the community. So the objective would be for the quality of these services to be approachable for everybody, likable for everybody. So, but it would not solely be a focus on those who are Medicaid recipients. It's for the whole community.
Commissioner Fender.
Hi, Samantha. I'm sorry, I walked right by and didn't see you sitting
It's
there.
okay.
But I also wanted to thank you for coming here. I appreciate the work you're doing. I think this is definitely a needed effort, and I just hit your QR code and gave you a little
Thank you.
help.
Thank you, thank you.
And Town Manager.
I just had a question on the one slide. You had almost 1,400 births last year, and you're projecting the top end would be 600 or 700 in the new building. So are the rest high-risk births, or?
So about 20% of our births are going to be high risk. They wouldn't be eligible for these services. But I would also anticipate that this isn't a setting for everybody.
Right.
But if we have, and I think, I say that it might not be a setting for everybody because some people don't want to have a birth center birth. They have the option to go to the hospital if they want to, but they're going to have to travel for that type of
Okay.
service.
Understand.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I appreciate your time.
Any other questions? Thank you very much, Samantha. I appreciate you coming in and
Thank
educating
you
us
for the
this.
time.
Let's make that happen.
All right.
Thanks. Next is vulnerability study, the town engineer.
Well, this isn't as exciting as the last speaker, so. And I highly support what she's doing, because I think most of you remember that Margie Jordan and her husband started a birthing center in town, and they were very successful with it, and they ended up selling it, or working together with the hospital at that time, what was Martin Memorial. So it started with people that are from your community here in Sewell's Point. So I'm sure you all want to contribute to this worthy cause. That's good. She's the greatest, so. Anyways, first of all, I'm Joe Capel with Captech Engineering. I have several people that work with me here tonight. We're going to be talking about the vulnerability resiliency assessment report that we had to do. I think many of you may not have had time to read it all, but basically this is the report that we put together. It is based on a DEP grant for planning that is required by the town. That DEP provided us the funding to put this together, okay? DEP pulled that together. I'm going to be talking from a PowerPoint presentation, but basically what I wanted everybody to understand, I'm going to take this from a high level because there's a lot of information in here, and I'll be happy to meet with you one-on-one on it because some of it gets somewhat complex and some of it I know will be controversial to some people out in the community. But essentially what's important to recognize is the DEP, the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, they have made money available to us for the planning study, and really what we're talking about is what could happen with things like sea level rise, the increase in the number of storms, the frequency of the storms, the intensity of the storms that we're encountering, and so forth. I think everything that we are talking about, this commission has already endorsed, and that's the reason why we are moving forward with our program for South Sewell's Point Road, North Sewell's Point Road, and so forth, and everything. So I don't think this is an easy thing to not recognize, but what you should know is they've given us actually the money for the planning study, but they've given us a lot of money for the phase 3 and phase 1 and phase 2 programs, okay, that we are currently underway building or planning or designing. So what most of us need to recognize is they're not going to keep giving us money unless our projects are in this report, okay? That's what they've told us, okay? Now, that could change, but for the most part, the importance of this is we kind of stepped out there ahead of the report, put things together, been working with it. So I think that shows that you guys are really on top of your game and so forth. But of course, we need to make sure we stay on it because I think you all recognize we cannot afford to pay $10 million to $14 million on these projects with a $2 million budget in town. We have to get these grant funds to make this happen. So I think it's important that we recognize that. Pretty much, first slide, I don't know who's controlling me here, but essentially, this statement and so forth is really, it explains what we have to do. We pretty much, in 2021, the Florida statute was established for this program. Pretty much most communities, coastal communities in the state are required to file these reports. The report is based on making sure we basically have a way of resolving issues when they come up when we do have a storm and so forth. The thing to recognize here is some of the items that are in this statute may be a little outdated. They're good in reference to making sure we comply with a standard, For example, we're using storm events and elevations and so forth from 2017. Those things will be adjusted over time. But to make sure that we all played on a level playing field, all the studies being done in the state are going to be done on that 2017 information on sea level rise. They're all going to be using a datum of NAVD, okay, which we typically do in all development projects. But essentially, they set up a standard here, and I just want you to know, when you see some of this information, you're going to say, well, that seems pretty old, but it's really, it was based on how they set up the statute, okay? So I'm only telling you that so people, you're aware that we had to do this project in a certain format. We had to get everything together certain ways. Basically, I've pretty much explained, we've established in 2021. It's based on all Florida coastal and inland resiliency activities. 95% of the Florida communities basically have to follow this, and you have to have the completed assessment by 2026. We were actually given a deadline to have the project completed by the end of last year. So if you look at the report, it's dated December 2024. So it took a while to get to that point, but basically ours is dated that 2024. Again, we meet the state standard, and what we're doing is we're trying to protect your critical assets, okay, from sea level rise, intensified storms, and flooding. So the main thing that we had to do is obviously figure out what all the critical facilities are. So I think everybody has seen this map multiple times. It pretty much outlines why it's important in the town to do this improvement. As you all know, this standard planning for the future is a document actually DEP prepared for the whole state of Florida. Well, it pretty much fits the town pretty well. If you look on the left side, on the bottom layer, you'll see St. Lucia estuaries on the west side of town. We have a high level of River Road area. Then it slopes down towards South Sewell's Point and North Sewell's Point Road, and then we go into the Indian River Lagoon. So this slide is actually perfect in depicting our town's cross-section, right? And basically what you see on the slide is sea level, existing sea level, and then you look at a dashed line above that, and that's the future sea level. And basically, that's what what we're planning for, okay? So this is just a quick graphic about this, but I want to let you know it was something that actually DEP has provided to all communities. So the various tasks we had to do, real quick, again, I'll probably bore you all to tears. We had public outreach meetings. We actually did, we did about 8 meetings. We tried to recognize two things. Most of the improvements in this have to deal with stormwater management. Well, we also have to do a master stormwater management plan that we are working on. So we pretty much met with 8 different areas in the community to get people's input. I will tell you, we're not we didn't get a lot of participation. We had some good comments. Commissioner Burrell was at all the meetings, so he deserves a gold star. He was at all the meetings. So essentially, we basically had outreach meetings just about every evening for a couple weeks there in 23 and 24. Anyways, we did have some good comments, and I will tell you that some of the improvements may change as we do the master stormwater plan that we're going to be doing also. But pretty much some of the same comments that we received from that will be relative to what we're going to talk about here. Task 2 is to acquire background data. Essentially, we had to figure out the flood scenarios, the data for the sea level rise predictions. Storm surge is something, as most of you know, when there's going to be flooding. If there's a storm surge usually from an event like a hurricane, we get a rise in surge. That impacts our drainage in town. Tidal flooding, okay, when we have king tides, certain times of the year, that's in there. Rainfall-induced flooding, basically, as we get various levels of rainfall, and the number that you'll see in some of the report is increasing from 14 inches of rain to 16 inches of rain, you could see some additional flooding. We actually didn't find that as a item that was very, it's important to note it, but we didn't find that as anything changed relative to flood elevations. We had more impact from sea level rise and storm surge and so forth and tidal effect than we did from actually flood from rainfall. So you know, that's what our study would show. But the combination of several of those items is compound flooding, But the item we're trying to protect is critical assets. So essentially, we come up with the critical assets, and I'll go through them in a minute. We did an exposure analysis, identified the depth of water caused by the flood scenarios, and basically what that impact is on your critical facilities. Critical facilities is this building. They broke down in between what is in-town facilities and what are areas that town residents will visit outside the community itself. For example, Martin County. For example, the hospital. For example, Martin County Community Development Department and so forth. So those are different assets that are out there, but they are included in your study. This study is done in tandem with Martin County itself's study. City of Stewart's doing the same study, okay? So they're all being put together in the same analysis. Then we did a sensitivity analysis and basically detailed the view of how critical the assets could be affected by the sea level rise. And then we did the report that I've shown you here. And then we have to do an adaptive plan, which we've done. We've already done a lot of that information, a lot of that work, because we've already been working on various flood events and various storm improvements on South Sewell's Point Road and North Sewell's Point Road. Okay, first thing was public meetings. I don't think I need to go through each one of these items with you again, but essentially we've already talked about. Acquire the background data. There's comprehensive inventory of built natural assets, okay? So I told you earlier that assets tend to be town hall, police station, evacuation routes are big, important items. There's a marina in town, there's shorelines, there's seawalls, there's historical features. Peripheral critical assets, those are the areas in the county. There's a county fire station, a city fire station that services our community. There's boat ramps, there's water and sewer line, electric, gas, communication, county DOT roads, and the hospital, as I stated. Topographic data was important to acquire. We used LiDAR data for that. And then we looked at flood scenarios related to the data, sea level rise, storm surge, everything I've just spoken to you. Some of the material comes from Martin County Public Works. Some of the information comes from NOAA, and some of the area information comes from DEP itself. Okay, so essentially where I'm at right now is pretty much the critical inventory. I could go through each one of these, but essentially what you see here is you can see transportation items. You can call critical infrastructure, which is typically water and sewer lines and roadways and so forth. Then you have other community and emergency facilities and so forth. So there's a pretty good long list here of items that are important that we had to make sure we try to protect as critical facilities. Another item that is part of the requirements here is to, let me just get to something. The next big item is really exposure analysis. I just want to let you know, everything we're going to talk about next is items that are required as far as the study. First of all, sea level rise. They asked us to look at the 2040 and 2070 projections, okay, by NOAA. But it's basically was based on the information NOAA developed in 2017, okay? And that's what we used as the baseline, okay? You're going to find as we go through the slides, basically there's NOAA stations in Daytona Beach and some in Miami Beach, and we interpolated between the two of those. Storm surge, it's basically the 100-year storm with sea level rise. Again, those were predicted storm surge. Then we did tidal flooding. Those come from, and sea level rise, well, mainly tidal flooding comes from Martin County maps and data, and then rainfall-induced flooding. Those are flood stages that were modeled by CapTech relative to the increase in rainfall. And compound flooding, when you look at compound flooding on here, I just want you to know that's a combination of three specific items: storm surge, tidal flooding, and rainfall-induced flooding. So that's what you'll see as we go through this. Next slide. These are the NOAA graphs of 2017. You can see I circled Daytona Beach and Miami Beach, and the bottom graph is really telling you what were the elevations that they predicted, increase in elevations. On the right is the interpolated elevations in feet that we would see for those years. You can see 2040 low event and 2070 low event, and you'll see a 2040 high event and a 2070 high event. There's two different intermediate and high. There's an intermediate high and an intermediate low event that they've asked us to study for those two different years, 2040 and 2070. So the next slide is really predicted the compound flooding elevations. What you see here on this slide is, again, the left side is the scenarios of 2040, the low event, the high event, 2070, low event, high event. And what you see, first of all, is what the sea level rise is predicted at those date and times, okay? That's an elevation, NAVD, 0 being sea level, okay? So that's an elevation. And storm surge increase could be as much as 3-4 feet. In storm surge, you could see an increase, and then a high tide increase could be from 1.39 to 1.41 in various scenarios. And when you add all of those together and you put the compound flooding, basically the elevation that we could see water level is between 9.62 and 5.77. Now remember, that's in 2070. I'm not sure many of us are going to be around for that. But the fact of the matter is, that's the prediction, okay, based on this study. And I will tell you, sometimes the studies, the newer stuff, NOAA studies may be coming down a little bit, okay? So, anyways, I just want to let you know, those are elevations. To give you an idea, most of the roads that we're raising out there are elevation 3, okay? We're raising the road to elevation 3. They're down in the 1.5 to 2.5 to 5. Our finished floors are above 5. They're certainly above those elevations, except maybe the 962 throughout the whole town. But we do have some finished floor homes, okay, that you should know about, that even along these corridors we're developing right now, that their elevations are in the 4 and 3 range, okay? They're older homes that eventually can either be raised or they can be basically taken out and put new ones in and raised. But those are the elevations that we currently have out there. So again, these are dates that are well in the future, but I'm just giving you an idea. We have finished floors right now in the 4 elevation range. All right, so that's basically the information on sea level rise and so forth. With these, this table, I know it gets kind of complex, but that's why I say we probably might want to meet on certain individually on some of these. But basically, you can see the assets on the left side, and then you can see basically if there's a high impact or a low impact or immediate impact. Again, you can tell by the elevations that are called out there that they're high impacts when they're high, the elevations are higher in the elevations of above 6 and so forth. If there's a moderate problem, it's usually in the mid-range. If they're low, they're in the green areas. And, you know, if there's something that's not going to have any impact, it's in the bluish area there. So anyways, there's a table like this that's color-coded, so you can kind of see the impacted critical facilities. There's also maps. We have a number of maps on this project that we had to produce, so I just want you to know that there's about, how many maps do we have? 51 maps, so they pretty much replicate what's on this chart. So anyways, we could go through that another time. So anyways, that shows you the information that's out there, and they show you the maximum flood depths for those different storms, and that's what's on the top layer there, the various storms that we talked about. Next task is adaptation plan. So pretty much the adaptation plan considers quite a few things, and I'll go through this list. I'll probably go to the summary to get to it in the end, but essentially that's what kind of lets us know how we're going to plan for these changes that could be happening and what are some of our solutions. I will tell you, we have an adaptation plan in the report, but it will be modified over time because essentially you're going to want to change the storm events and so forth. It meets the criteria in the Florida statute, but you'll probably want to make some adjustments to that. So let's keep going. I think next slide. and I just want to get to the prior, and what we did is we prepared a prioritized plan of, if you look on the right side, you can see of these different improvement plans, what items we're currently working on. It says underway, the blue ones. The green ones are near-term things that you are already having me work on for the next 3 to 14 years, and then some of the long-term items are in orange and pink on that list, okay? So that kind of gives you a priority of the adaptation plan, of the assets that we need to protect. And so this is just the general summary that I think probably talks about the report, that it pretty much talks about everything that you'll see ahead of this. First of all, key findings and assessment is already vulnerable under the existing conditions. Everybody, you've seen water on the road, you've seen water in the swales. There's decline or loss of shoreline, natural areas, and so forth. That is happening today. There are impacts to the local and regional transportation systems and development and revitalization of waterfront neighborhoods. All those things we encounter, and we're trying to stay ahead of. And so basically those are the key findings of the assessments. And then the items to consider in adaptation planning is engage the community. We've started that. I will tell you that, we started that with the first 8 meetings that we've had on this. We continually have meetings, and it's very important that we continue to have discussions in these meetings about the work we are doing and the work that we need to do, and listen to the public on that. So that item we've been doing, but obviously we're going to be doing this for quite a while. Consider vulnerability and revitalization of certain areas in the community. Like I said, if we got homes that are below 4 and 5, those we need to be talking about how we're going to get those homes to be raised, because they do impact how we provide improvements in town. Natural solutions, if we can do those kind of things with the environment. Everything we've been designing so far, we've had to provide, we've considered nutrient load reductions going into the river. We've considered making sure we have, that we get all our water management permit and provide water quality treatment. All those things are in the plans we're already doing. Basically, adaptable decision-making framework. As we get into this program, you're going to have to make decisions, right? As you do every day, all the times you're up here talking to the community. So we're going to have to do that and figure out what items are important to address. And basically fixing with infrastructure. And again, there's strategies to all this, and last but not least on that list is finding potential funding. So we've been pretty successful in funding from DEP for resiliency, for water quality, and basically from FEMA for flood control. And those are the sources now, but that doesn't mean that in the future they won't be different. So we have to keep finding other sources. Basically, the conclusion on here is the current and future flood risks of our critical facilities we need to keep our eye on, and that's what the purpose of doing this vulnerability study was. Again, decrease vulnerability and increase resiliency for sea level rise and coastal storms. So that's pretty much what's in here. I went kind of quick. I know there could be a lot of questions. If you want more time in another meeting, I'll be happy to do that.
Commissioner Titikus.
Joe, a couple questions and then an admonition. The question is, what's the difference between NIL and NIH? There were differences in terms of the elevations of the sea level rise.
Yeah, there is a difference. That map that shows that, Commissioner, is
I'm not talking a numerical difference, but why such a wide divergence between two governmental agencies?
well, that would be a good question for Noah, I guess.
Okay, so the answer to the question, my name's Craig Stevens. You come up to the mic, please.
It'd be like the 9th slide if you want to put that up, the 9th slide.
So it's not two different agencies, it's two different elevations or scenarios. So they're both NOAA, and it's NIH is intermediate high, and NIL is intermediate, NOAA intermediate low.
Okay.
So the,
Yeah, that's the slide.
yeah, that's a slide.
So on the left, as Joe mentioned, we have two different stations for measuring the elevations of the sea level rise. The NOAA we're using NOAA data, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration data, that the state, the DEP, chose this NIH, NOAA Intermediate High elevation, and they also chose the NOAA Intermediate Low elevation. And that's what they're using throughout the state, including Sewell Point, to identify how much sea level rise would we expect in year 2040 and year 2027. That's the NIL, NIH.
So if
Thank-
you look at, and I'll just use the Miami as an example, Commissioner, basically, there's a difference of 1 foot in those two curves, okay? And as you go, as you get into, that's in 2040, 2070, it's 1.5 feet. That's the difference in those two sides. And so you're right, there's a difference, but it basically based on the intensification of the rainfall, I would bet, or not rainfall, but the sea level rise.
Sea level.
I don't know if that's answered your question, but that's what's,
That did, thank you. Now, I have an admonition, because somewhere in these slides, you had talked about we're going to have to come up with a maintenance strategy. And December 15th, I sent an email to Mr. Daniels requesting the maintenance strategy for our outfalls, and not maintenance, but what's the maintenance program for our outfalls, current outfalls that we have, and what's the cost of maintaining those outfalls. That's being handled by and overseen and managed by CapTech. I then spoke to you and Mr. Daniels a week later and asked you for the same information and have yet to get it. Would you pass that along? These are, pass that over to April, if you would. And this is the map that was done in a 2020 study. It was the town annual maintenance map for cleanouts. And in going back and doing some research in 2011, the town also had an outfall maintenance schedule. And so why is it taking 2 months and I haven't gotten an answer?
so we did go through first of all, what I thought you were asking, first of all, is the cost that we've had over the.
No, I'm asking, I want the schedule. We have X number of outfalls. When are they looked at? When are they cleaned out? And then what's it cost?
Okay. So, yeah, we have the information in there, but I think let me just tell you what I've been doing, okay? First of all, we have a map, and on that map, it explains the maintenance schedule, okay? We maintain every outfalls every year, once a year, and we do that in the months between March and June, okay? That's what we do, okay? And basically, the reason we do that is because that's just before hurricane season. So we want to make sure the outfalls are clean for that. So we do all the outfalls, and basically it's about 1/3 of the town that we do then. We then have 2/3 of the town other stormwater facilities. We do one of those. We do one of those each year. So we do a total of one for all the outfalls every year, and then we do one of the other thirds in addition to that each year. So we basically are doing about 2/3 of the town per year in cleaning out those outfalls and pipes, okay? What that entails, it entails cleaning out the inlets, okay, with a vacuum truck, okay? Now, what we don't do, and we do it on case by case, is the pipe systems. Most of the time, we find most of the debris and leaves is just in the inlets. What we do is we have inlets that have a sump in them, and that's where normally we capture that debris, okay? So, first of all, I apologize that we haven't given you, because I actually do have the data And what we had to do is go through all the prior bills, okay? We've spent about an average about $25,000 a year on clean out in that period of time. That's what the last 2 years have shown. Now, I will tell you, there was a period of time when we, before we got into the normal schedule, that we actually had to go and clean out and spend a little more money, because we quite frankly, at that time, we didn't have the funding, the regular funding to do that. So we basically then picked up and came up with the map, came up with the timing, and then basically been cleaning them out. So that does get done. I do apologize, I didn't give you the data, but again, I had to pull together all the billings from the thing. Now, if I probably given it to Mariah, she would have turned it around like that, the funding, but I wanted to make sure I knew how much, what items were cleaned, because it does vary. But you got to understand, sometimes these inlets don't get filled with sand. Sometimes we're a tree city, so we have a lot of debris and leaves. It's kind of all over the place on which ones get cleaned. And to be honest with you, sometimes we have to rely on residents to tell us this inlet has got a lot of debris in it. And it takes more than just once every year or once every 3 years to clean it out, to recognize that some areas get more debris than others.
So what I heard you say was that this is on 4 separate maps. And what I asked Mr. Daniels for was, did the town have a policy and procedure for clean-out maintenance? Which would mean that the schedule that you just enumerated would be written down somewhere, and somebody would be following that schedule, and we as a commission could turn around and take a look at it and make sure that it's getting done. That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the policy and procedure, I'm looking for the schedule, and then I also want to know what the costs are for doing these outfalls. Because a year ago, you approached this commission and you talked about setting up a stormwater maintenance utility, an MSTU, to handle this outfall maintenance. So, and at that time, I asked, when I wasn't sitting here, what's this going to cost? What does it cost per outfall? Never did get an answer. So I want an answer. And I don't think it should take 2 months to get an answer. And I want it in writing, not verbally. Thank you.
I have a question, Joe. Is there one of the residents here in Sewell's Point that lives on the Indian River Lagoon asked me what the cost is to raise a house, and is it covered? Can they get grants? It's an older home, and I was going to see if I could put him in touch with you. If this is the first one that contacted me, but I'm sure there's going to be others to follow in the near future.
So, first of all, we've gone through this procedure before, raising homes.
Yes.
Commissioner Burrell can explain some of the issues he ran into, and certainly if we're going to get into that again, we're probably going to want to make some adjustments how we proceed. We did ask, me and Manager Daniels sit on a local mitigation strategy group, and we did ask the FEMA representatives at the meeting last week, is there still funding for raising homes? There is. That hasn't gone away. The trouble is the effort to put all that together takes time. So, and usually what that means is we have to, what we've had to do in the past is we have to do it, first of all, usually you take a petition, you listen to people what they want. They tell you, okay, I want my house raised. That's what they've done before. We've gone to their site, looked at what that cost, and put together a grant for it. And usually let's say the last time I think we did it, we started it with 18 residents that wanted their houses raised. And quite frankly, by the time we took the inventory, went and figured out our total numbers and also got the grant, I think we came down to less than 10. I think that.
About 25 in the beginning.
Yeah.
Not just in the flood zone, but right outside the flood zone, we had some homes that wanted to be raised.
Right.
And you're right, there were only about 10 decided that they really wanted to do it. It's quite a project, so it's not something simple, takes a long time to raise one house. So, and the funding is very difficult. We finally worked out a method of payment with FEMA, but it took 4 houses that were raised before we finally found the solution. At one time, they said, okay, we'll pay the contractor. Another time, they said, no, we won't pay the contractor, we'll pay the resident, but they have to pay the contractor. So this is the kind of thing that goes back and forth with FEMA as well. So again, it's not a simple solution. Maybe if we can get grants again, it might be a little easier since we've had some experience with it.
So-
Yeah, I mean, again, we can pursue them. I just want you to understand, what ends up happening is those 25 houses, you have to pay for a study to be done on them. And that costs money. So if the person doesn't decide to continue on, you've wasted that money, okay? Because it's, again, unless you figure out a way to make sure that the people pay, but they're probably not going to pay until they know whether they're going to get the money. So I'm just trying to tell you the expenses that you start with, and then, people decide to bow out. We actually had a great deal, to be honest with you, when you think about it, because the 25, they actually funded probably 18 homes, and when those people bowed out to 10, the other people got to share in the excess money. So it actually worked out pretty well for the residents, but that did participate. I just want to let you know it's not a simple process. But again, I don't doubt that we're going to need to do more of it, because if we do, as we go up, work our way up the peninsula, we see the houses that are really vulnerable to flooding, and raising them is one way that we can keep that from happening. So
Yeah, and like I say, I've seen the ones we've done in the past, and they really look good for the most
Yeah.
part.
yeah, they did come out, but they came out very nice. They did.
It's amazing. Nobody has to leave their house, actually. I mean, they leave the pictures on the walls, they leave everything right there, and they raise it up, and nothing gets affected by it.
It's amazing how they do it. It's just jacking it up, I guess, like a car.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions from the commission? Thank you, Joe.
By the way, there's one other issue with that.
Okay.
It's not easy to find a contractor to do it. That's the other issue. That's very difficult.
Yeah, we
It's
had-
going to get harder to find them too as we start having the,
We actually only found 2 contractors. I think one was out of Orlando, I believe, right? And then actually, one that's probably the notable one was right here in Jensen Beach, which we were very fortunate. But then when the hurricane hit New York City, half the business went to New York City and half came in.
They went-
Yeah, so anyways,
They followed the money.
that's right. So anyways, thank you.
thank you, Joe. Next, we have Local Mitigation Strategy Committee. Amy Heimberger Lopez.
Good evening. How are you?
Hi.
I'm Amy Heimberger Lopez. I'm the Deputy Director of Martin County Emergency Management, and I have the pleasure of working with Mr. Bob Daniels and Joe Capra on our Local Mitigation Strategy Committee. So we are very familiar with hazard mitigation. Could you hold up the plan for me? This is the plan that we're updating, and tonight I hope you brought your dinner because we're going to go through it one page by page. Just kidding. I'll get you out of here quick. But first, before I even start my presentation, I've been listening to the presentation here and the question that came up about elevating the homes. I have some good news for you. The state of Florida has a new program. It's called Elevate Florida. And this is a first of its kind. I'll just read it right from the website. I've been getting emails about this and I haven't been able to, put it into practice yet. So I'm glad that this question came up and I'll give you the information. It's led by the Florida Division of Emergency Management, and it's designed to protect homes and communities by reducing damage caused by natural disasters like hurricanes and flood. The eligibility is to be over 18, be a U.S. citizen, and to be the legal property owner, and to be able to contribute up to 25% of the project total cost. So this is actually putting the project onto the homeowner versus the municipality. So this is a great program to look into if you have houses that you need to elevate and mitigate for that. And it goes through like how you can apply and all that. So it's actually the resident directly applying to the state of Florida and cutting out anything. So something to look into for your residents.
Yes.
All right, so local mitigation strategy, this is taken from a county perspective. It says Martin County all over it, but it's not only Martin County government. As you can see, there's all of our municipalities as well as the school district that participate in this. So it's really, we're looking at the local mitigation strategy as the county as a whole versus just one unincorporated portion or each of the municipalities. Next slide. So what mitigation really is reducing the severity of harmful effects of existing or possible hazards that affect Martin County. And this really ties in very nicely to the vulnerability analysis that you just heard about. And, so it ties in really well to this, the vulnerability status, because this is looking very much at flooding and storm surge, sea level rise, which are things that we address in our plan as well, what we can do with that. But this one goes a little bit further. You can go next slide, and addresses all of the hazards that we could have in Martin County, Sewell's Point, all of the jurisdictions. So as you can see, we have for hurricanes, floods, severe thunderstorms, hazardous materials, tornadoes, which, you know, luckily you guys didn't get any of them, right? From last October. We're going to talk about harmful algal bloom, transportation accidents, radiological, nuclear, just anything that could go bad in the county that we might need to address and mitigate against. So every 5 years, there's an update to this plan. It is required by statute that we have one for the county and that it be adopted by all of our municipalities, which includes you. So that's why I'm here presenting, so that you're aware that this is something that you're going to have to read the whole thing, right? And pass it.
Right?
It's going to be a test. I'll come back in a year and we'll have a test on what it is. So our last plan was updated in 2020. This is 2025 is our next update. So that's what we are in the process of doing. We do have a committee that meets quarterly and during special meetings twice a year. But then we formed a subcommittee to go over the update of the plan. So it's a little bit more specific to the update of the actual plan and not the projects that are ongoing that we monitor. During this update, we're going to revise the hazards. So we've already dropped a couple, we've added a couple, we've separated a few, and that'll all be outlined in the plan. We're going to update the events. So in the plan, there's a section where we talk about each one of the hazards and what's happened in the last, as much history as we can find on that hazard. For example, tornadoes, can we go back to the 1800s or 1700s? We work with partners like the National Weather Service to give us information, and other Department of Transportation, depending on the hazard, who's the expert with the data. We're going to pull that data and update the last 5 years of these events. And I expect tornadoes to be higher on the list this time. And then the other thing that we're going to do is update the project criteria. One of the requirements of the plan is to have projects to mitigate against these hazards, because what good is a plan with no action, right? So we're going to analyze what's happening, see what's been going on, what can we do about it. So those are our projects, and those are some that you will be interested in adding. Oh, back just a second.
I'm sorry.
No problem. And then finally, we have public involvement, which is one of the requirements, much like the vulnerability analysis, that we need public involvement with this. At the end, you'll see a QR code for a survey, and that's just asking the public basically how do they feel about these hazards? Do they feel like it's a hazard? What kind of projects they would support? And so me coming here is also part of public involvement. You guys are the jurisdiction, but we also have other people, want to get the word out as much as possible. So if there's any other ways that you can get the word out, we would definitely appreciate that. Oh, you can go to the next one. So speaking of projects, what everyone's going to do, we have a list of I think it's about 40 projects, maybe less. And each jurisdiction has their own projects. I've pulled out the Sewall's Point projects. We have a lot of road and drainage improvements. You got 6 projects, and there's the estimated total project cost. That's not what you are going to have to pay. This is just on the list so that you can apply for hazard mitigation grants. And you will end up paying 25% of this, which is your share of the grant. So all of these are in some way in progress already a little bit. Joe can probably talk more in depth about each one of them. So we've broken it up. Sometimes the project is too big to just do it, so we break it up into phases so that it's a little bit more manageable and we can go after those funds that are available for us. The importance of having projects on this list is that if they're not on the list, you can't apply for hazard mitigation funds from FEMA or from the state. So we really encourage that if you are going to be seeking funds from the federal government or from the state, that they be on here. So that's the list of the projects. Maybe it'll be different next time you see them. If you add them or delete any, we'll see, depending on what the analysis says, right? Next one. So after it is all completed, I will be completing this in around June and submitting it to the state. The state will have 6 months to have a back and forth with us as to if they approve it or not. And it's final due in December. So if there's any changes, we have about 6 months to update and get new information if there's anything that they want us to change or include. So after that happens, the county commission will adopt it, and then it is your turn to fully adopt it as your plan too, something that you support. You need to have it adopted so that you can continue to apply for those grants. So this is the resolution that you had in, I believe it was 2021. The plan was updated in 2020, as I said, but it was at the end of the year. So that's why there's a little bit of lag, and it was adopted in 2021. You'll probably be adopting it in 2026. So something to look forward to. Next. This is the survey QR code that I mentioned. We also receive information via email if you just want to email us at mcema@martin.fl.us. Just your feedback about what it is that you would like to see in the plan, what it is that you might see as a hazard that you want us to address, just general information. I think is that it? All right, that's it.
Questions?
Any questions?
Do you have a card?
I do.
Yeah, I have a question.
Of course.
As I find my button here.
Commissioner Titicus.
Yeah, Ms. Lopez, thank you
Yeah.
very much. I have a couple questions. One, for North Sewell Point Road, you reflected, thank you for your presentation. I had a couple questions. For North Sewell Point Road, you reflected a $13 million number.
Mm-hmm.
And the number that we've seen is 26 million plus. Was that just Sewell's Point share, anticipating that the county's going to pick up the other half? Or where did that $13 million number come from?
This comes from a project worksheet that we work off of, and I understand that prices are increasing all the time. Inflation, everything else. So this may be from the original document. If there has been any changes, we do ask jurisdictions to provide us with updated information. So that might be something we might have to update.
And then the second question I had was, when you're going through and you're analyzing the different things that need to take place, As part of that analysis of government regulations, I have two people that I'm familiar with that live in the Rocky Point area that have run into code violations because of, after the tornado, they haven't, I guess, cleaned up the area as quickly as possible due to delays with insurance companies and other stuff. Are we looking at the government codes to make sure that people are given sufficient time to be able to address their problems? Is that part of the plan?
We do address what the capabilities of the government are, of each municipality. So I will ask, and I've sent out a survey, I believe you've already responded, to what type of plans do you have, what type of policies do you have that address this type of mitigation, or codes or ordinances. So we do ask for that, and that's the only analysis that we do. I don't go into what each one says. That's, yeah.
Vice Mayor.
My question is, you have $13 million down for North Sewell's Point Road. We don't own that road. Why are we paying $13 million?
I will defer that question to one of these two. I am only the keeper of the list, so.
Okay, sorry.
She's just the keeper of the list, and quite frankly, some of these numbers are.
Helps us get the grants, too.
That's right, she helps us get the grants, and so you have to, a couple things. First of all, the prices have increased, and what we carry, and Mariah keeps it with Bob, what the latest numbers are, okay? But you have to understand, what's on this list, we already have some grants, okay? And they were based on an original application. And we have a grant, and just so you know, most of the LMS funding in our case comes from HMGP, Hazard Mitigation Strategy grants, okay? We have already have a grant, and we have a grant to do the preliminary, the engineering, okay? Which is a small amount of money to do the engineering compared to what the total cost is. In the time we turn that in, the prices have almost doubled, if not tripled, okay? So I'm only telling you the scenario, how this happened.
That isn't my question.
Well, the question is what is I know what your question is. I'm going to get there because I want you to know other numbers on the list are low, okay? But they're based on a grant that we have to do a certain portion of it. We have not been able to get an agreement with so what the town did is they went out there on North Sewell's Point Road and said, let's at least apply for the grant and see if we can get the grant. We never decided what the split was or who's paying what portion or not. But the proposal that we're looking at on that project is the road is their responsibility. You're absolutely right with that. But the only way that they're going to solve the drainage problem out there, in my mind, going through all the scenarios of resiliency and everything, is the water is going to have to stop from getting to the road, okay? In other words, we have to capture the water in the upland areas, just like we're doing in South Sewell's Point, which means there's going to have to be improvements in our community to make that happen. I'm not saying that our town should pay for that. I'm just telling you that's the only way we're going to be able to find a place for that water to be stored, to get that to work, okay? Now, you're absolutely right. We've never made a decision on what the funding share is going to be on this, okay? But we felt it was necessary, based on what the commission wanted us to do relative to making sure that we treated South and North Sewell's Point Road equal relative to flood control benefits. And that's the reason we went after this. I'm just trying to explain this, what happened. And I agree with the numbers need to be escalated, but the problem with us escalating them, on all the projects, okay, is we already have a grant out there that we are supposed to be utilizing for this work, and we haven't been able to get to that point, okay? Because what we learned last week is that the county wanted to, they wanted to approach it, go to a different grant possibly. We're trying to convince them to stay with the grant program we have, but the fact of the matter is they may have a better, there's various options out there for grants now, so they may have to go to another one.
I'm not asking about the grants. I'm just saying that why are we paying anything for that if Martin County is not willing to to do anything. But we don't own that road. I mean, if we took responsibility of that road, I could understand spending the money. But if we're not going to take responsibility for the road and Martin County owns it, I don't understand. I just don't get it. I understand you want to clear out, you want to take care of you want to mitigate the water issue from west to east, okay, from the bluffs down. But then again, that's a separate issue. That has nothing to do with North Sewell's Point Road. That's our own issue. That's something we should be applying grants for. We're applying for grants to raise the road in North Sewell's Point when we've done that once before and we flooded out neighbors, we flooded out people. And now we're going to spend $40 million or $29 million on a project that we don't even own the road. They're not even to take care of their own swales. I don't understand it. Doesn't make any sense to me that we're spending money on their road.
Okay, so, and I'm just going to give you a scenario, because I'm not trying to argue with it, I'm just trying.
No,
I'm-
I get it.
I'm giving you a scenario. If they cannot find land, and first of all, the only land they're going to get is town resident land to solve the problem. That's what it's going to take, right? So if they go and take a house out for us, are we going to be happy about that? I don't think so. I don't think we've tried not to do that in the past. We've basically utilized the lands that are out there in pieces of property. So I'm just trying to tell you that I don't see going through any grant process, whether it's with FEMA, whether it's with resiliency, or whether it's with federal funding, that we are not going to be involved with this project. It runs right through the middle of town. It just doesn't, I just don't see us not being involved. I don't know what the share is going to be, and that's what I think is negotiable.
We can't even control the speed limit.
Well, you're just concentrating on a road elevation.
Well,
I'm concentrating on
concentrating on the whole
drainage,
road. I
everything
mean,
else.
we don't even have a say in the speed limit.
Well, and that's why we were trying to hope, again, we started the process. We have done nothing more than start the process. We've been trying to get them to come to the table relative to actually moving forward with the grant we do have and do the planning.
How much is the grant that we have?
Well, the potential, you have to understand something. No, because
I'm trying
it's
to,
not,
believe me.
it's not very easy to picture this, but we started with a much smaller funded project. The last estimate I did, you're right, it's close to $26 million to fix the project. That means acquiring some land, okay, or portions of people's properties, just like we're doing in South Sewell's Point Road, okay? So basically, there's that, there's pumps, there's additional outfalls, there's retention areas. I mean, I'm just going through the whole gamut of things. When you put that out there, those are the kind of costs you're going to have. And again, I don't see any scenario where they are not going to be impacting town residents' property or coming to us and asking us to work with them on this project. I just don't see it. Now, maybe they can, if they can find a $26 million grant, that's great. And maybe they'll go after it, not even need our help. And you have the right to tell them, we're not helping you at all. Go find the money and you find the solution.
So we have this grant already secured.
It's a very small amount of money. It's under $100,000 for the money for.
So we have $100,000 towards 13 million.
Well, this is the way it works, okay? I just want to make sure, because this is how all your grants work when it comes to the LMS program. You provide a cost, you provide an estimate. They give you the right to go forward with the design. You then have to do a benefit cost analysis to show how much money you can actually get from them, okay? In our case, the value of the improvements have gone up. Guess what? The value of the homes have gone up. The benefit cost ratio works better. And so we have the potential with those benefit cost ratio of getting all 26 million, okay? We don't necessarily, we may not get it, and of that, we may have to pay 25% of it, meaning us and the county. That's a potential, okay? Can I tell you that that's what's going to work? We can't get even past the potential. We can't even get past the county and us working together to move to the conceptual design. The idea was we would go and get a conceptual design done, and then find out what easements we needed, what land we need, and what grants we should pursue. That was part of the first thing that we were proposing. They told us to do that. Number one, they needed to be in their capital improvement plan, and number two, they needed an interlocal agreement with the town. And all we said is, we may be able to convince our commission to pay 50/50 on just that concept drawing and that information, so we can move forward. Again, we don't know if you're going to agree to that, Commissioner. I know you don't want to pay any money, I'm just saying, but fact of the matter is, I don't see how we're going to move this forward and keep the flooding out there for our residents and.
Well, we could start with them fixing the swales and cleaning out the drains that are already there. We could start with that.
Well,
We haven't done that yet.
there's about 5 outfalls there, okay? We clean, we are responsible for about 3 or 4 of them, 3 of them, okay? And the other ones they are responsible for. I'm not going to tell you they clean them as regularly as you want them, but they do clean those 2 out. We know they've been cleaning.
What about the piping that goes down North Sewell's Point Road?
The piping,
Yeah.
they do clean the inlets that is in North Sewell's Point Road, okay? They don't clean our pipes that cross the road. They don't clean our
Oh,
pipes
that's
that go
ours.
parallel. Yeah, they don't pay those. We do that
Right.
in the clean out that Commissioner Dudickus mentioned, so.
I'm just concerned because we don't own the road, and it really, and the last time it turned out to be a disaster for a lot of the homeowners along that road, and I don't want that to happen again. And especially if we don't have the money. And we're laying out now $100,000. Well, okay, in the scheme of things, in the long term, but yeah, right, it's not a lot of money. But we don't have any kind of, with the Martin County, we have nothing.
So I just want to make sure, first of all, because the 100
I
is
don't want
what.
to belabor this here, but
Yeah, but
I'm
there's
done.
100,000 that's in that grant, okay? We've come up with a number about and I only want to be forthcoming with you, at about $750,000 to do that analysis that's needed, okay? Because it's a pretty big job. We have to survey the homes, just like we had to figure out all the homes that had an elevation 4 in South Sewell's Point. We got to go and look at all the homes up there that are at the wrong elevation.
that's fine, but.
But I'm just telling you, the numbers is not the
Yeah,
100,000.
We don't own the road.
Yeah, I get it, so.
Commissioner Titticus.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I have one more question, and that was, in Elevate Florida, you went through the criteria for people to become, and you said one of the criteria was that 25% of the cost has to be borne by the resident.
Yeah.
Or earlier, one of the commissioners had asked, what's it cost to raise a home? Do you have even a ballpark number of, say, a 3,000 square foot home, what it would cost to raise?
I would not even venture to.
Okay,
To
thank you.
guess.
No, that's all right.
Can I, the cost was anywhere between $250,000 to $550,000. That was the range. Okay? Now, as people dropped out, more money went in, as Joe said, more money went into the people that said yes. Okay, so they got more money. But that was the average, about $250 to $500. That's the range.
That was out of pocket for the owner, or
No,
is
no,
that with the
what
grants?
FEMA paid. And they paid it all.
This is different.
That was full, that was 100%. Okay, the rest of it, they offered, for anybody that wasn't in the flood zone, but was right on the borderline, they offered 75%. And the owner would have to kick in 25%. Okay, so,
Anything else? Thank you very much.
Anyway,
Thank you.
thank you so much. Have a great night.
Chip. All right, we move on to public comments. I have a couple of cards here. Eric Haas?
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Eric Haas. I live down on South Sewell's Point Road. I do appreciate you all doing the traffic calming workshop. That was very, very good for the community. As you were expressing that we don't even have control of the speed limit on the roads on the north. But I'm here to kind of talk about what happens from Henry Sewell's to the opening of High Point. There is a significant reduction of speed from that point. It goes almost a 40% reduction in less than a quarter of a mile. It is very fast. There's traffic is fast, and more as they're building, we're getting a lot more outsiders. I know that will eventually calm because we're about built out. But what I have heard, and again, I'm just making this for the record, that they want to do a lot of traffic calming, and my suggestion would be that now that the road has been detoured, we have almost a year to look at this. So please don't get too excited about it right away. But to put any kind of traffic calming into that road, like speed bumps or ridges, we all know how loud those can be, and reflectors also. People drive over those reflectors, it's very loud. Please consider maybe doing a decoy like you have up on Ridgeland, maybe man it occasionally. If you've gotten pulled over, when you see a policeman, you tend to remember that you don't want to be pulled over. But I do think if there are offenders that continue to do that, police are very good about giving tickets, and that does tend to stop people from going fast. So please just consider, instead of making it look like the entrance to an expressway or lights and bumps and noise and all of that, please consider doing something else. We do have almost a full year of detouring, which does tend to keep a lot of that traffic away. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric.
That's for the agenda.
Jerry Dunworth.
Good evening, Commissioners. Mr. Daniels, my name is Jerry Dunworth. I live right next to Mr. Haas. We did not coordinate our comments tonight.
Are you sure?
But I've been living in my house at 165 South Sewell's for about 8 years. I'm on South Sewell's Point Road multiple times in the day by walking dogs, riding my bike, or walking across the street I have a dock on the lagoon across the street. I personally do not believe that there is such a big problem that far south on Sewell's Point. I think that once you get to Henry Sewell's Road, and I'm guessing at this, 80% of the traffic that's coming down has already turned off before it even gets to us. That's my guess, and that's what my other neighbors a little south of me have told me when I first moved into the neighborhood. So I don't really think that there is that much of a problem. But if you do a study, I guess you should really do a concentrated study on that section of the street to see if there really is a problem. I know that some of the residents might point to, well, we had a couple of accidents down there. And I know that there was one that got me out of bed at midnight one night, and I believe that they were being followed by a police car. But if people are out drinking at night and they're driving under the influence, they're not slowing down by any passive devices. If they're not slowing down because a police car is chasing them, they're just not going to slow down. So I don't think the passive devices are going to go after particular speeders. And I know other residents might complain about certain landscapers who want to rush down the street. And it's my experience that not all the landscapers are speeding. I don't see many speed at all. But if there are certain ones that do, then we do have a police force. I would think that the speed limit could be enforced. Those are general comments. I want to reinforce what Mr. Haas said with some specific comments. I look out my house and I have a nice view of the water. I don't want to look out and see any signage or blinking lights asking people to slow down, which, again, I don't believe they are exceeding the speed limit anyway. And most importantly, I don't want any speed bumps or things that are going to cause banging and clanging when the landscape trucks, which we do get a lot that go by, but if they hit the speed bump and the tools and equipment inside their trucks are banging around, I don't want to have that noise nuisance. So, thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. Ms. Lucas.
I'm not here to talk about the drainage. And I was gonna bring no cakes, because I love, oh, what am I doing? Okay.
I thought you were going to give us a song. on that.
Yeah, I want to talk about what he said, because I live on One Mandalay Road. I've lived there 23 years. The other day, I followed two people to their houses in High Point. I won't say who they were, because I don't know, but I followed them to their garage, and they were speeding. I sit on my porch all day long and watch it. Wasn't here, and I understand that you were talking about putting some kind of new something on the road to slow it down. I don't know, what was it? Was there something I missed? I have an idea. It doesn't cost a lot of money. We could have a stop sign. On eBay, you can buy a stop sign for about $54. We could get the maintenance guy, to dig a hole. We could buy some concrete. It's nothing big, but it'll just stop people, especially when it comes to Mandalay. They just roar down that and go to High Point. Now, I'm not going to tell you who they are, but I know who they are. I followed them right to their house. One of them actually passed me when I was making the right, trying to make the right. So it is happening, and Darian, who lives up the street, he was walking his dog, and this was a couple years ago, and they ran over his dog. So when I see somebody walking their dog, I always remind them, please put your dog on the inside of the road. So there is a speeding problem. I just think it would be good. I don't want speed bumps. I don't want racing stripes. I just think like maybe a stop sign is the least expensive, and will stop, people will stop and they'll look and then they'll carry on. Because people do walk their dogs. I have a dog, and my dog escapes all the time, and he ends up at the Stools Police when Tina calls me, and they pick him up once in a while. He's too old for that now, but it's a really great place to live, and it's, we have a problem. Okay? Thanks so much, and see you soon.
Thank you, Cindy. Chris Great.
Chris Gratz, 1 Margaret Road. Also want to talk about the discussion on traffic and speeding. I've lived in the community now for 7 years. I have never seen a police officer pull somebody over or ticket them for speeding on South Sewell's Point Road. That's me personally. I'm not saying they haven't, but I've never seen it in all my time driving there. So again, I kind of go back to enforcement. I think, heard some from others, all of us who are in that proximity, the residents who do it, it's a similar pattern. So it's obviously not being enforced, and the behavior continues. And so it also reminds me of conversations we had when we were doing the road work about kind of the aesthetic and the caliber of the community. I think we should all have a very high standard of the community we live in, what it looks like, and a lot of these traffic calming measures don't uphold, I think, our community. You don't see them on Jupiter Island. You don't see them in nicer communities. I'll also point to, they just did some flashing lights out on A1A. Big flashing lights. They don't work. Nobody's slowing down. They just did all the flashing speed limit signs on Indian River Drive. They don't work. Nobody slows down. Enforcement slows people down. All these other measures are just going to muddy up the community and really not be effective. So I don't think it would take a ton. I know our police force is stretched, and that's an important area to focus on as well out on the main road. But a little bit of enforcement there every once in a while, just to express the importance of the town on the resident speeding, I think would go a very, very long way. So, thank you.
Thank you, Chris. right, do we have any additions, deletions, or changes to the agenda? Commissioner Mayfield.
I do. I would like to pull out the financials. Usually I ask Mariah my questions before, but I didn't get a chance this month, so I'd like to pull that out and put it as 6A or not 6A, but after consent agenda?
After the consent agenda?
Sure. Yeah, that's-
Okay.
Can I make a motion for my
All right.
Something I said?
Commissioner Mayfield?
I was just gonna say, can I make a motion to approve the agenda, even though I made the,
Uh,
Yeah, just
Okay.
minus that.
with the financials pulled?
Yes.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Roll call?
Vice Mayor Burrell?
Yes.
Commissioner Fender?
Yes.
Commissioner Mayfield?
Oh, yes, sorry.
Commissioner Titicus?
Yes.
Mayor Kurzman?
Yes. All right, now we're going to go to financials.
Consent agenda.
Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry, the consent agenda, but financials.
okay.
That's what we,
Oh, you want to do that first, and then we'll
Yeah.
approve the consent agenda?
let-
Okay, that's,
let's do
We
that.
just approved the consent agenda, right? Didn't we just approve?
I said
We
to do the
approved it.
financials after the consent agenda, so if we
Oh, I thought you, okay, never
I'm
mind.
sorry. I'll make a motion to
My-
approve the consent agenda without the financials.
Okay,
She just did. You seconded, right?
I thought that was a change.
That was that was the approval of the whole agenda, right? You did that.
Modification to the agenda.
I apologize.
Commissioner Titicus?
No.
Okay,
I think I made a motion to approve the consent
Second.
agenda. Okay, and you said, okay.
all right, so we did that already.
So now we got
Uh,
to,
Call the question?
Commissioner Fender?
Yes.
Commissioner Mayfield?
yes.
Commissioner Titicus?
Yes.
Mayor Kurzman?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Burrell?
Yes.
Okay, now financials, so. Is that okay, Mayor, if I ask?
Yes,
Okay.
please, let's,
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners.
Hi, Mariah.
Hello.
Okay, on page 12, it is the balance sheet for capital projects. The intergovernment receivable went down 20,000 from the beginning of the year. I believe that's the capital project money, correct? Isn't that the one that the increased millage, that .4 millage, is that what that amount is?
My page is different than
Oh,
your, what
okay.
page number do you have?
It's the balance sheet for capital projects.
Okay,
Oh, I'm sorry, I said, did I say 14 and then
I said 12.
I said 12, yeah, okay.
There's a page 4 at the top.
Oh, that's what you're talking about, okay. Are you there, Mariah?
well, yeah, so
Okay.
I'm on, for capital projects. You're
Yes.
looking at the intergovernmental revenue?
Yes.
No, that's still a grant that's.
Oh, that's still the grant, okay.
Still a grant that we are
Okay, so
basically
you got,
waiting for them to return the money to us.
so it changed, you got 20,000 of it? Is that what
So
happened
we
since the
did
beginning of the year?
get, yeah, we did, there was additional money that did come in,
Okay,
but not the full
okay.
amount.
And then, page 15, which is actually the general fund income statement, operating, it's my page 15, page 3 of 7.
Page 3 of 7, okay.
You had said, you had made a note in your memo that H24 is hurricane stuff you're trying to denote in the GL number. You had .24, H24 is the hurricane stuff?
Correct.
But then there's also the .018, what is that?
.018, that is actually for the 78 South Sewell's Point Road. So I'm
Okay.
tracking
Okay.
the expenses that go along with that property, so we have an idea what that.
Okay. And so the tree maintenance big expense for H24 was hurricane cleanup or something?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, and then, probably my last question is, in your memo also, you were talking about, this is just more of a general thought. You had talked about there's something about cash flow in the general fund, where is it? Oh, I'm sorry, capital fund,
In the capital fund.
yes.
Mhm.
So when you look at the balance sheet, you got almost 5 million in cash and investments. Now, I realize that some of that cash is probably because we always get our ad valorem taxes up front, and
Right.
they have to be there to pay for the expenses throughout the year. I've probably asked this, but are the investments available? Can you, is
Yeah,
there
they
stuff you
are-
can use to help cover cash flow issues?
Yes, so our investments are liquid, so we can pull them when we need them.
Okay.
And to answer that question more specifically, I do have a cash flow report that we're going to be hopefully presenting at the next
Oh, okay.
commission meeting to go over, as we are going to need to be talking about some of our options.
Okay.
So,
I think that is about it. Thank you.
you're welcome. Any other questions?
I'd make a motion to approve the financials if no one else has.
Second. Roll call?
Commissioner Mayfield?
Yes.
Commissioner Titicus?
Yes.
Mayor Kurzman?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Burrell?
Yes.
Commissioner Fender?
Yes.
Now we move on to new business, strategic priority list. Town manager?
Yes, if you'll bear with me a minute here, I'm going to pull up my slides. They don't transition easily, sorry. There we go. Okay, they're not as fancy as the other slides that you've seen tonight, but I wanted to be able to, show you and go through each one of these. So let me just start the slide program. There we go. Okay. As what I found out through our exercise that I appreciate you all getting me the data on was we're not far off. I think everybody on the commission has pretty much got the same ideas. It's just where you rank them, and then sometimes that's hard, Perfect example, when I talked to the mayor about his number one is grant funding, and if the thought process is we don't have funding, we don't have the project, because we've always looked at it as we're not going to go out unless we can get the grant funding and be able to cover the match with that as well. So you kind of have to understand the train of thought, and I think with talking with most of you, I think I feel pretty comfortable in saying that, our strategic plan that we have right now and our capital plan is still kind of in place of the top 1 and 2 items that we want to pursue. So when we look at the resiliency and the stormwater treatment, as the vice mayor said, obviously that's all part of, what the mayor had said about finding grant money so we continue to do South Sewell Point Road. Financial efficiency, that runs throughout the gamut from each of you throughout the 5 choices that you had. The completing the road resiliency projects, again, enhancements for South Sewell Point Road. So they all kind of fit in. So I was just going to pop through these real quick, and then as you can see, I think we're on track to do that. And where this helps, and I know that you all wanted to kind of see where there was common ground between the 5 of you, I think that's going to help us as we go into the capital budget, which will be in April. We always look and try to approve the capital budget first, and then the rest of the budget as we proceed through the following months. So I think this just kind of helps us to know that we're still on track. I think we have to look in the future of the outfall maintenance, as we talked about, and the road repairs that aren't tied in with South Sewell Point Road. We still have to be responsible for taking care of those. And I know we do use some of the gas tax money for roadway repairs. And I think we also need to look at, in the in the future of even making short-term fixes. If we don't have enough money to do the whole repair work, and there's things that we can go in and to maintain the roadways to keep them from falling apart. Because I know our attention's always been the South Sewell's Point Resiliency Project, but we do have to pay some attention to like River Road, and I know we kind of stayed away from River Road because we were hoping to get the grants, and we're still hoping to get the grants, but you got to weigh and balance that. So as we go through the capital projects, I'll be going through maybe some of the wish list items that we're going to have to fund in the future. And then this was the third list of priorities, and updating the codes and ordinances. That's something that we do have to pay attention to. Obviously, public safety, both on the police and fire side, is we've made great strides, I think, in the last year to beef up the police department and trying to be able to recruit amongst the other cities that are taking some of the talent as well. So, and then South River Road stormwater issues. Obviously, we see now how they affect us on the side streets and also on South Sewell's Point Road. So it's they all tie in together. And environmental stewardship, Commissioner Fender brought that up, and again, that's another important aspect that we have to keep on looking at. Are we doing what's best for the environment? And I think that's some of our own doing with the resiliency work that we're doing and the septic to sewer. And then I know in our big sheet that you all did back 5 years ago, I think roughly, the undergrounding of utilities, I think that's still on a wish list for those of you that walk the streets campaigning and stuff. I'm sure you probably heard that from some individuals, and that's one that we keep searching for some grant work that we could get and put in place. We all know that the downtown area of Stewart is undergrounding some of that, but that money's coming from the CRA from Stewart. So they're funding it. We don't have a CRA, and they don't have CRAs usually for residential areas. So, and basically a CRA is taking the tax dollars that they normally would be bringing in and putting some of it towards that fund. So we do that with our capital funds. Any questions, any concerns? Is there anything that you need me to do with the data right now, or are you comfortable addressing this as we look at our capital funds?
Commissioner Mayfield.
Yeah, I just wanted to note for my answers, I tried to work around the system, but it's not showing up on this official report because at the bottom of my sheet, I said, for all my 5 priorities, everything should be done with fiscal responsibility and efficiency.
Yes.
So that's essentially like my top one. I wouldn't promote doing any of these things in a non-fiscally responsible manner, but I guess my trying to work around it didn't show up. I just want to note that. You brought up underground utilities. I just wanted to say maybe there's opportunities to do smaller sections at some point if we break it down, because the whole, and I think there's discussions about South Sewell's Point Road, it being so low, is that even the smartest thing to do with whatever, but maybe some of the side streets, just a thought if it was packaged smaller, maybe that's for the future, but.
Commissioner Titikus.
Yeah, I had a couple things that I put in there. One of them was town communications, and then the other one was building code review, and sprinkler systems and elevation of new homes. One of the things that I found, and I've got 2 complaints this week about the communications that come out from town hall, are not necessarily friendly. And it's the fact that they're strident. And I also had this when I brought the issue up about the door hangers. I mean, the door hanger basically, it's like you've got X number of days to fix it, or if you don't fix it, we're going to knock down your door and drag you off to jail.
I don't think they say that, though.
Not so, that's the tone, Bob. But, you know, and as my wife tells me a lot, it's in the tone. And apparently I don't have a good tone at home, but at any rate, I think, you know, whatever the routine communications are that go out, we ought to review them, because that's part of our face to the public. And I think we want to present a good face to the public and to the contractors that do business in our town. You know, and I also think that, you know, perhaps we ought to consider, you know, maybe I'm old school, but there used to be a thing called the welcome wagon. And I know our website has a lot of information. If you're a new resident, here it is. But when people move in, perhaps, you know, some form of information in terms of here's how things work and here's how things go. I know when we first moved in 29 years ago, the chief of police came to visit us and basically said, here's how things work in town. It was a very pleasant visit. It was welcome to town, but it was also, you know, here are the rules of the road. And so I think we should consider something along those lines, and even, you know, new residents perhaps divvy it up among the commissioners to where we get a new resident and then the commissioner stops by and makes a visit and says hello and welcome to town. In terms of the building code reviews, I went on to start going through our codes, and by the way, everything from the 1970s is missing. When you click on the 70s, it basically says data not available. But I was talking to a retired battalion chief, and he indicated that Martin County has started in the new rural lifestyle communities that are requiring that sprinkler systems go into the residences. And the reason is because it's far from a fire station. And apparently if a fire company doesn't get there within the first 7 minutes, they're not suppressing the fire, they're containing it because of the flash implications. Whereas the sprinkler system puts that out. Maybe we ought to consider something in our town too along those lines for new homes, not retrofitting, because that gets very, very expensive.
Can I address that?
Absolutely.
I asked that question because I am a proponent of sprinkler systems, because I think they save lives. And apparently, the building lobbyists within the state, they only address commercial buildings. And it's now, I don't know if we can go stronger, and that's could be one of those areas that we might need Mr. Tercivia's feedback on, if we could enhance ours past there, but the fire code, part of the building code says that it's only for multifamily and commercial buildings.
Yeah, I appreciate that. But I think they're setting the baseline standard. And
well, that's what I think, but sometimes, you know, I know dealing with lobbying groups that are very strong, the homeowners groups are that way, or the homeowner building, I guess the builders groups are that way, not the homeowners association. I apologize. Glenn, do you have feedback on that, or?
Yeah, I can look into it. I mean, obviously, usually towns can be more restrictive, but as you say, there are lots of preemption laws, as we all know. There's lots of cases where the town has to abide by something like fire code, but I can look at that.
Because I asked that question when I first came here, so it's a good point, though.
thank you.
Okay, Town Manager, you had your...
I think I just wanted to talk about, well, the fire code we just spoke about. There was something else that came up. Well, you know, when we were dealing with the speeding issues and, you know, the enforcement, and I'd love to have all of our positions filled, and that's what we've been working on and through the recruitment process, that we can get more police officers out there. But I do want to see them move around more, and when the chief gets back, I'll be talking to her about how we position our forces.
Commissioner Fender.
I was just going to say, I love the idea of a welcoming process for new residents. There is actually a process through Stroll Magazine where they actually bring a gift basket or something to every new resident. So something like that is happening, but it's not formal from the city, town, and I'd certainly go welcome a resident when it's my turn to do so. That'd be great.
And we do have a welcome packet, too, that we give out if they come to town
We'd want
hall.
to take that with us when
A
we.
lot of times, we don't know when there's somebody that's new. You know, if we contact the realtors, let them know about the packet, offer it to them so they can give to their clients. But, you know, there's still some people that fall through the cracks, so.
Yeah, there's no way to know when somebody moves in unless you physically see them move in. It's one of the, unfortunately, I wish there was easier. When I see somebody move in, I do always greet them, welcome to Sewell's Point. I've been doing that for many years.
Oh, we
with
could
good
have a
response.
process, a loose process in town hall where if somebody knew that there was somebody new on their street, they could tell
Call me.
clerk
We'll
or
get it.
the town manager, and, you know, if they knew, they could write a name. They could enter them into this process, whatever, a welcoming process.
All right, anything else? All right, we're going to move on to commissioner and staff comments.
Okay, I'll wait.
Okay, you're going to do that. All right, let's go commissioner and staff comments. We're going to start with the staff. Bob, Mariah?
Covered everything I needed to cover, so. thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Mayfield?
Yes, I have a couple comments. I wanted to ask the town manager, I know we did this a couple times. I would love to get in the agenda, and it doesn't even have to be every month, because I know how hard, there's a lot to get together, and you guys are a small staff, but the project update sheet, we had that going a little bit, maybe even once every 2 months, but just kind of, it helps me remember, and then when people ask me, I can easily go back and look, and to have that written is helpful.
Okay.
And just with grant information that you can, I don't want you to spend, nobody needs to spend time like concocting numbers, but just, it's just a reminder, and that way, I can easily, we can easily reference it. So that would be great if that could happen. I also thought of this when I come to meetings, when we're talking about improving roads. I would love if we could work into the budget improvement of the parking spots right there, where the asphalt's like disappearing and you're practically driving on the roots. I know the roots are a problem there, but even just there, one of them's getting real skinny and you can't even fit a big car on it practically. And then for the enforcement, I was going to say that I drive a lot with my children, driving them places, and I have seen the police pulling people over, and I think they've been doing a good job as far as I can see with the detour. At least in that detour area, they're out there picking up cones, pulling people over. So they're doing a good job. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to make a comment on this. One of the things I've noticed on South Sewell's Point Road, where the detour is, on Saturday, for hours on end, there wasn't a police officer to be found, but there were a lot of speeding cars, and one of the people who I didn't even know that lives on Morgan Court, she knew who I was, and she asked me to stand there for a few minutes. She goes, "Watch the cars," and as I'm watching, there'd be one car that's doing the speed limit. There's another one just coming up, and that car who's sitting a tenth of a mile up's catching him before you know it. And it's just, you see a lot of work vehicles, and it's just, they come for a little bit, they nail some people, then they move on. And that's, somebody should be out there from 8 in the morning till 5 in the afternoon or 5:30. Well, there's people, because the road's very narrow. When you go through, if you're trying to pass and there's a truck on one side, you don't have too much room. And if somebody's speeding, and I've seen some speeding trucks, I've seen some big trucks, I've seen the Amazon truck, the FedEx truck, and, you know, they're just moving on. It's like they're not going to get a ticket. I've seen one of the pool pinch a penny, he's flying through. And, you know, they just think they have a right to speed, and it's something, we need more police presence on South Sewell's Point Road. We need to move the chief's car to another position. They put a real car there now, that it's been sitting there for a while, and let's see what happens, a live car. The other And as you heard from the neighbors, as I already did, the optic speed bars, they're not looking forward to it. They just feel it should be enforcement from the police when you go through there. Nobody, to them, it would be an eyesore in front of their homes. And I assured them it wasn't my idea on that one, so.
My idea.
And
I'll take their rap for that.
I'm not gonna take that one. And, you know, as you heard from Cindy Lucas, she's getting angry. She's following the speeders to their homes now. So it's just, and.
That's a good idea.
But, you know, it is, you know, we keep saying the same things over and over every meeting, but the vegetation, it's got to start coming down on a lot of these roads. If you look over at Rio Vista, when you come out, you look to the right, you can't see. It's just, there's bushes there, it sort of obstructs the vision. And I know over by Periwinkle, I was told to drive there, I did, it's horrible. I would hate to pull out of there any given time, that's very dangerous. Over by Margarita, you have the Eureka palms on the left side, they're kind of, need to be trimmed so, to a certain extent, where you have better vision. So that's going to be important, but we could keep talking about this over and over every meeting, but, you know, it's nice to see that we're writing some tickets, but we could write a heck of a lot more tickets. And people, I just challenge everybody, just take some time to take a walk over to Sewell's Point Road Saturday morning, watch what goes on, and you'll see it firsthand. And it's ridiculous, and I'm sure if you're doing 20 miles an hour like I do, to respect to the people that live there, you'll see cars that come up from a distance, and they're catching up to you pretty quick from a distance back. They don't care about the speed limit. They feel they're exempt or something, I don't know, but it's not, the people are pretty miserable that live on that road right now, so I do feel for them. And just more police presence and consistent. That's the hot spot in the area.
One
That's where they need
officer
to be.
on per shift.
That's it on Saturday? No, let us
So
spend,
if you want to set an officer somewhere from 8:30 to 5:30,
unless he gets a call, he's got his radio.
well, he's got a call, but then you have somebody else that wants him down at Margarita and South Sewell's Point Road, and you have somebody else that wants him on Hibiscus, you know, I'm just saying,
Yeah, it's
there's
just-
a lot of spots to
But
cover.
the thing was, there was no police present there for almost the whole day on Saturday, I'm being told by everybody that lives there. And they want a police presence, not.
I'm going to be there Saturday.
Okay,
I'm not the police presence, but I am going to look
okay.
and observe.
You're talking about South Sewell's Point Road, not
River
River
Road.
Road?
River Road.
You keep saying South Sewell's Point
No, I
Road.
meant to say River Road, I
Okay. I'm
sorry,
apologize.
River Road.
South
Okay.
River Road,
That makes a little more sense.
No, I
At,
apologize.
Morgan Circle
yes.
is. But I know the chief mentioned that to y'all at the last meeting, you know, when we were dealing with speeding issues and stuff, and, you know, it's just, and that's how we came up with doing the decoy cars. Unfortunately, one of our decoy cars is gonna cost us like $3,600 to get it to a point where we can move it, and I'm not gonna throw money in a car that we're getting.
Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know it's a dead car. I thought it was driven there. I
Well, no,
never-
that one was driven there.
Oh, okay.
We have another one that's sitting about here in the back lot, and we were hoping to use both of them, but
For $3,600, let it sit there.
I think all the pulling over is happening around me, because I literally, right before you said, I'm seeing people get pulled over. That's right.
I think they keep following me.
I don't, yeah, probably.
All right, any other comments? Oh, I'm sorry. Vice Mayor?
You had mentioned Amazon. Mentioning just that alone, I had an Amazon truck at 4 o'clock in the morning making a delivery. Okay, I have them at midnight making deliveries, FedEx, UPS. That is a trend that has become ever since COVID. Before that, they wouldn't dare do that in Sewell's Point, ever. Okay? They are contractors, just like anybody else. And so we have to try and control them a little bit. I don't think we can control them totally, but, you know, at 4 o'clock in the morning, I don't want to hear a FedEx truck
I could appreciate
making
that.
a delivery to somebody else, it's just, anybody. So that's just something to keep on the back burner. I don't know if there's anything we can do about it. But it's there.
Well, speeding I don't want to see from anybody, especially those trucks. And Commissioner Titigus.
I just want to know whether Commissioner Burrell is just getting home at 4 in the morning.
I got home at 3,
Yeah.
and I just put my head on the pillow, and I heard this truck.
The thing I wanted to bring up was the fact that, Mr. Daniels, you were, Commissioner Fender last meeting asked you to bring back the optical line so he could get an idea aesthetically of what it looked like. Do you have anything for him?
Not yet, but that's what I'm working towards, getting it set up, so.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
But I think, what I'm hearing is it's going to be, an effort that the residents don't want, but.
I thought they weren't noisy. I thought they weren't very bumpy. That was my impression.
They're not bumpy.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
it's just
They're
like a lane.
painted on the road.
Yeah.
And it isn't a flashing sign. It's not, what I heard was, I don't want the flashing signs in my bedroom.
It's also pretty, it looks more like you're on a highway than it does a residential neighborhood. You lose like the soft touch, I think, is what they were trying to explain. That's what I heard. They
But
go,
we're-
just give them tickets. Yeah. Yeah, aesthetically, it's not aesthetically pleasing, and that's what they're telling me. And I have to, I don't live on facing the road, so
I
They
heard
do.
noise and signs. I didn't hear stuff on the, I do hear what you're saying, but if I,
And we're only talking about
like
curve.
curve.
Right, the curve.
yeah. No, when they were talking to me, they didn't want paint on the road. That's pretty much what was mentioned on there. They're not as aesthetically unpleasant.
You
It's-
look at his window across his beautiful view to the ocean and see signs and
And some,
road stripes.
yes, exactly. He did say stripes. That's what they're all referring to.
I guess we'll just have to see a picture.
Yeah.
And one last thing. Monday through Friday, we could still have a police presence. There's usually 2 officers on. There should be somebody on South River Road in that detour area, a little further down, not right where you see the police car, but a little further. And if we could have 1 police car maintained there on a regular basis, a live one, I think it will definitely probably cure it after a week or 2.
I think they've been writing several tickets in the detour area.
They have, no.
Yeah, no, I've seen them ride them. I've seen them, but then they're gone. It goes on
Maybe
for
they
a
have a-
couple hours.
Well, also during those hours, you have the school buses. So, and they follow the school buses, because
Yeah.
we do have some of our residents and some of the Amazon drivers and everybody else decides to go around a school bus. So for the safety of the school kids, that's been a project that they've been doing since before I came here.
Yes.
So, I mean, it's just, it sounds great on paper, but it's not gonna happen all the time. But like I said before, when the chief gets back, I will sit down and we'll look at the deployment issues.
Thank you. And do I have a motion to adjourn?
Just a reminder, the March 18th is our meeting, the next meeting, March 18th. It's the 3rd Tuesday. Sorry.
Me? Tim?